thoroughly unprepared, we take the step into the afternoon of life. Worse still, we take this step with the false presupposition that our truths and our ideals will serve us hitherto. But we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. For what was great in the morning will be little at evening. And what in the morning was true, at evening will have become a lie. Carl Gustav Jung. I had begun a journey towards self-discovery when I learned this quote. It came to me through Dr. Wayne Dyer's movie entitled The Shift. It was this desire of self-discovering that led me to apply to the PCC program because I was in the middle of a transition, a transformation from life's morning to life's afternoon. The beginning of my spiritual growth, or at least the beginning to this particular path, as we always have a spiritual journey, began after my first MDMA ecstasy trip when I was 21 years old. I enjoyed drinking and partying, living freely and carelessly up to this moment. So when an opportunity to rave in Lake Havasu with hundreds of other college students came up, I was not going to let that pass me by. This was my first experience with MDMA and ecstasy, and also it was the first time in years that I felt this unfiltered joy. That weekend, I gained something inside myself that was hidden away. Call it insight or intuition, but that happiness and joy stuck with me. It stuck with me in both positive and negative ways. On the positive note, I knew that my body had the capacity to feel this unfiltered joy. On a negative note, my body's endocrine system was overloaded and my kidneys were suffering. With the help of a naturopathic doctor, I was able to gain insight into what my body needed to heal. I needed to take some herbal supplements. I needed to drink plenty of water. But most importantly, I needed to stop drinking alcohol. And this was great news, nothing too difficult after all. However, when I stopped drinking alcohol, all the trauma I numbed myself to began to surface. I was doing physically better, but my mental and emotional states started to feel the effects of so much suppressing. I grew depressed, highly anxious, highly volatile, and unmotivated. I was becoming self-destructive and witnessing the hurt and pain that I caused my significant other. I was in a crisis. I needed help. Later in my PCC journey, I learned that what I was going through was what Groff calls a spiritual emergency. Now, not knowing that I was having a spiritual emergency, I was checked into suicide prevention ward in a San Jose Kaiser facility where they determined that an intensive outpatient program would be the best way to support me, as well as a prescription to Zoloft. In IOP, outpatient program, we shared our stories according to the prompts given. One day in group therapy, someone said, "I'm just going to live this life with depression for the rest of my life." Their words struck me so abruptly. I could feel my entire body rebel. Why? I thought, why would we have to live the rest of our lives this way? And as soon as I asked myself this, I heard a voice reply, "You weren't born this way. Something happened to you that caused you to feel this." There was this intuition within me that knew there was a natural, holistic way to heal trauma. And so it just happened that during the 3 weeks of my IOP, the department started offering meditation classes as an added form of therapy. That meditation class was an initiation on the spiritual journey I was undergoing, one of many synchronistic happenings along my path. I was hooked on meditation, addicted even. I meditated 3 or 4 times a day, and every time my mind felt like it was slipping into a depressed mode, I would meditate. And this worked for some time. I was getting better emotionally, but depression always seemed to linger just behind a thin veil. I began to listen to guided meditations in order to shift my mind into more positive arenas of thought, and I came across Dr. Wayne Dyer's recordings and videos. In one of his amazing videos, he said, one of the ways to understand how to find the purpose in your life is to return to nature, to find your own nature. A short time later, a friend introduced me to hot yoga. And after doing yoga for some time, I felt my body had discovered yet another tool for releasing trauma. And I no longer felt like randomly crying. I no longer felt alone. Instead, I started to feel inner peace and inner balance. I became addicted to yoga. So, in addition to meditating 3 to 4 times a day, I was moving through different yoga postures. Life started to go fairly well after that. My relationship with my partner was improving, and my relationship with self was improving, and I continued down this path of spiritual growth. I continued to dive deeper into esoteric books like The Law of Attraction and The Four Agreements. I had been on this journey about 5 years now, and I was starting my master's program at San Jose State University in English and comparative literature. While I did enjoy studying the literature of medieval and Renaissance eras, my journey of self-discovering led me to uncover cosmic connections in the text that I was reading. I was thinking in terms of archetypes and astrological forces with theological and philosophical lenses, curious about how the literature was relating to my self-discovering. However, no one in the English department knew what to do with me. They were not interested in cosmic connections between self and planets. They could not guide me in cosmology. I felt somewhat defeated because I constantly felt like I didn't fit in with my classmates who seemed fully engaged in the material. I was telling my mother-in-law about how I felt with my graduate program, and she emphasized that I should meet these people who called themselves the Pachamama Alliance. So she took me to their symposium, Awakening the Dream. I was surprised by how I felt after watching the presentation. I felt that they were speaking to the issues that the English department didn't have the awareness to speak about, such as ecological and socio-political issues contributing to our collective trauma and suffering. An opportunity to attend a vision boarding class held by one of the members of Pachamama and friend to my mother-in-law opened up. So I went into the mountains of Santa Cruz to participate. And it was here that I was introduced to California Institute of Integral Studies. I met a young woman who encouraged me to look into the programs that CIIS offered, particularly the PCC program. Following her advice, that night, that same day, I read through all the program had to offer. I looked at a few other programs, but nothing felt more divinely resonating than the PCC program. I went to about 3 different info sessions after that because I wanted so badly to apply, but I was nearly done with my graduate program at San Jose State. So I made a plan to apply after I was done with that program. But as with any plan, it doesn't quite go as we might think it does. I got pregnant with my second child that same year. I couldn't afford to go to CIIS, nor did I have the brain for it, now a mother of 2 small children, one an infant and one a toddler. Nevertheless, I continued on this path of spiritual growth and self-discovery. I became yoga certified, and I started my own wellness business, conducted yoga classes in various parks, and I grew my business into a contracting company, providing corporate offices with wellness classes. Doing this work, I developed a passion and a mission to compile all the information and resources that helped me improve my mental and emotional well-being and share this information to help others. But it wasn't enough to just share the information with my clients. They needed some structure behind the resources I was sharing. So I decided to create an 8-week course to help guide my clients through a series of informational modules, as well as daily meditations and weekly yoga flows. I taught the course in person at first, and I shifted into an online format right before the pandemic. And so now it was 2020, and I couldn't teach yoga because the pandemic, and I wanted to make this course the best course it could be. So I started feeling this urge to go back to school. I was driving, thinking about my course and how I could improve it when the thought of revisiting my aspirations to attend PCC suddenly sparked within me. Again, another synchronistic experience on my path to spiritual growth. However, this time I was not just on a path to help myself expand, I was on a path to help others expand as well. During my time in PCC program, I not only confirmed all the information and tools included in my 8-week course as viable and useful for healing, but I was able to expand on each of these topics in a way that created a bridge between the spiritual and the scientific. The first module of my course discusses the power of the subconscious mind. In my journey towards self-discovery, I learned that our subconscious mind directs 95% of our actions, and that our minds are powerful tools for creation and manifestation. During my time in PCC, I learned that Whitehead calls these creations actual occasions, and that in his process philosophy of an organism, we're constantly folding and enfolding into ourselves to produce the next stages of life, existence, reality. Now, the question on many of my clients' minds was, how do I begin the process to change my subconscious mind? How do I enfold in order to alter and influence that which is inside me? So the second module of my course talks about the importance of words. Words matter. Don Miguel Ruiz, author of The Four Agreements, said, "Speak impeccably," because words cast spells, and we're constantly casting unintentional spells on one another. Imagine my delight when I took Dr. Jim Ryan's class on Sanskrit language and cosmology. In this class, I learned that consciousness informs how we speak, and how we speak informs how we think. For example, Native American languages from the Hopi and Blackfoot tribes speak in terms of manifesting and manifested. They speak in terms of movement, which places value on the non-physical aspects of thought and mind, so that whatever is thought is already in a process of becoming. In his book, Language, Thought, and Reality, Worf states, "The subjective, or manifesting, comprises all that we call future, but not merely this. It includes equally and indistinguishably all that we call mental. Everything that appears or exists in the mind, or as the Hopi would prefer to say, in the heart of all living things." This leads me to the third module of my course, where we work to understand and improve our self-talk habits. The module introduces the cognitive sciences behind behavior and self-talk, concluding that speech and self-talk habits form in our early childhood, and that the quality of speech and self-talk can lead to higher or lower levels of anxiety and confidence. In addition to this science-based research, I employ spiritual texts which demonstrate the same notions. For example, Proverbs 11:17 states, "Your own soul is nourished when you are kind, but you destroy yourself when you are cruel." And Lao Tzu says, "Kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness. Kindness in giving creates love." In PCC, I learned that for the Brahmins, mantra was a way to resonate with the universe, so long as one performed it properly. The Brahmins believed that the chant itself was enough to conjure up the forces of Vash. While the Hopi emphasized the foundations of thought and desire, the Brahmins emphasized the structure and tone of chants, as well as the movements of the head and hands. The goal was to produce a visceral effect in which Vash, this divine entity, could be felt, and so the mantra, being an emotive discourse, must be felt too. And so in the fourth module, we practice attaining this viscerality through mental imagery. According to the law of attraction, a channeled text by Esther and Jerry Hicks, it states that if we can see it, our desires, in our mind's eye, we are more likely to attract it into our lives. During my PCC journey, I sought to understand the science behind this, so I enrolled in every physics class Dr. Welsh provided. I learned that in quantum physics, our observations of quantum particles influence their superposition states. Quantum mechanics of chaos, the uncertainty principle, and quantum entanglement suggest that consciousness is fractal in nature, circumfluent, spiral, visceral, and non-physical. Consciousness is probable rather than determined. It is ever shifting and ever evolving. We and everything we see and experience are like fractal actualities, and our consciousness, or our collective consciousness, is like the undefined darkness from which these fractals formulate. So by developing mental images with intent, just as the Brahmins developed mantras with intent, we can begin to embody that which we desire to experience. In quantum physics, we have what's called time dilation. Time, more specifically space-time, stretches and contracts depending on the frame of reference. According to special relativity, the faster one moves through space, the slower time moves. For example, the growth rate of a child's cellular development is faster than the growth rate of a fully developed adult. For the child, time stretches and appears to feel slower. For adults, there seems to not be enough time in the day. So this brings me to the fifth module. In this module, we discuss fear, F-E-A-R, or false evidence appearing real. Our personal frame of reference might be determined by our fear of an unwanted event taking place, or it could be based on a frame of reference that's optimistic about a specific desire manifesting. If we place our desire in our mind's eye, but we enable fear to take over the hows and the whens of our desire's manifestation, we're putting space-time between us and our desire. If we think optimistically about our desire, we start to embody the consciousness of the Hopi and the Blackfoot member, who understands that thoughts are already in the process of becoming reality. And so we contract space-time between us and our desires. Of course, life always comes with challenges and trials to help teach us lessons about who we are and who we are becoming. So in the sixth module of my course, I introduce the hero's journey, as illustrated by Joseph Campbell. In my own self-discovery journey, I found relief in knowing that my dark days don't last forever, that I was just in a moment of my life where I was shedding one part of myself and birthing another. The hero's journey taught me that every seemingly negative occasion was happening for me rather than to me. I was here to learn something from that negative occasion. All this was affirmed even more in my PCC journey as I began to learn about archetypal astrology. Like the hero's journey, our personal, world, and global charts are useful tools for informing us what part of our journey we're experiencing, and it allows us to make some meaning from these seemingly random occurrences. Not only can we make meaning using these archetypal and astrological tools, we can connect our story to the story of the cosmos. In the final module of my course, we practice the art of allowing. Dr. Wayne Dyer reminds us that while in the womb, we were being taken care of. All that was required of us was to be. We had a total and complete faith. Then we were birthed, tiny beings, still embodied with complete faith. But as we grow older, we start to think that we need to become more than beings. We need to become doings. We have to start doing things in order for our life to manifest the way we desire. But nothing could be further from the truth. My PCC journey and my personal self-discovery journey has informed me how powerful we are just as beings and just being. It's informed me that synchronistic occurrences can and do happen just by our desire to shift. That we can influence the fabric of the universe, pluck from the superposition state to create a new dream for this world. We can return to nature, to our nature. We can awaken the dreamer within each of us. We can inspire others to awaken their dream. And together, we can elevate consciousness, not only to heal our own bodies and minds, but heal our planet, our collective relationships with humans and non-humans, and ultimately change the dream of our society. Thank you.